Hi there guys, welcome to Boxpred. These are my answers to viewers' questions. First and foremost, thank you to you guys who sent questions in response to my Boxpred's questions video. I got 15 all in all. If you ask a question it will be answered, so thank you for that. And regarding the names of the people who sent questions in, I will be saying what they are, but I'll also try and get some annotations up on the screen when I mention them. So let's start with question 1. I've pretty much done them in the order they were sent in. And the first question is from Dabromster, which is D-A-B-R-O-M-S-T-A, Dabromster. And he asks, who do you think would win between Vitaly, Hay and the biggie Mayweather and Pac-Man? I believe Hay and Mayweather both by KO. Okay, looking at Vitaly and Hay, I'd have to go for Vitaly Klitschko to win that one. I know that Hay looked impressive last time out against Chisora, but again, Vitaly's proven, he hasn't been beaten for so long now, and I just can't see how Hay is going to be able to crack his code really. How Hay's going to be relying again on that power, that ambush style, that one punch, and I don't think he's going to be able to land it, whereas Vitaly is going to always have that ability to try and box me outside and use the plan that's worked on so many other opponents, and he's going to be able to go and take a decision. So I would take Vitaly by decision. I think Hay is savvy enough to, not get stopped, but I pretty much see a repeat of the fight against Vladimir really. I haven't seen anything to really suggest otherwise in my opinion. I would obviously give Hay that chance of landing that shot to stop Vitaly, but Vitaly's experienced. I would have to go in with him by decision at this moment in time. And looking at Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao, I pick Mayweather by decision. I know there is argument for the stoppage, but I would go for him to win a decision at the moment. Pretty much, I've held this view for a while now, because Manny Pacquiao's kryptonite is a good counter-puncher, and Floyd Mayweather is one of the best counter-punchers, if not the best counter-puncher in the game. And I think purely for that reason, I pick Floyd Mayweather. I always have really felt that Mayweather would beat Manny Pacquiao, if it ever happens. But yeah, I'd go for Vitaly to beat Hay by decision, and also Mayweather to beat Manny Pacquiao by a decision. So I hope that answers your question. My second question is from Lucky Stew 72. That's Lucky, L-U-C-K-Y, Stew, S-T-U 72. And he asks, who are your top 5 pound for pound boxers right now? And when I made my questions video, this is the one question I was fully expecting. The old pound for pound question, who are your favourite boxers? I'm actually glad he said top 5 and not top 10. I must admit, somebody asked me a while back, they sent me a message saying, can you make a video giving your top 10 pound for pound fighters? I feel a bit guilty because I said yeah, I'll get a video up, and I never did, pretty much because I fought with it around in my head for a while. And like most people say, I don't really agree with the pound for pound list. It's a mythical, theoretical list. It's fully based on opinion, of course. And really the problem I have with it is, what do you base it on? I was just asking, do you count for experience? Or do you account for the people who you think would beat who? Can you have a fighter in there who's only had between 10 and 15 pro fights, he's unproven, but you think he would beat one of the top fighters, or most of the top fighters? But anyway, I've basically got my top 5 list, and I'd have Floyd Mayweather at the top, with Andre Ward second, and those two for me are really interchangeable. I think that Andre Ward is pretty much the most difficult fighter to beat in the world right now, with his mixture of styles and his ability. So Mayweather and Ward, it's the top 2 interchangeable. I've got Juan Manuel Marquez as my number 3. I think he's an absolute class act. He's one of my favourite fighters. He's really that good, I believe, and I think he beats a lot of guys that people rate really highly, even at his age now. Sergio Martinez, my number 4. Again, quality fighter, very skillful and slick. And Manny Pacquiao is my number 5, who I still, I maintain that he beat Timothy Bradley, and I think he's still got to be up there, because he's exciting to watch and he's still very difficult to beat. Even when we've said Marquez we think, those of us who believe Marquez beat him, he's still having really close fights. You know, he doesn't, you know, completely get outclassed, and I think he's got to be up there. Honourable mentions, you know, one of the main things that really confuses me when it comes to pound for pound is the heavyweight division, because, you know, where do you put the Klitschko brothers? They've been so dominant for so long, but in pound for pound terms, I kind of see the heavyweight division as a separate entity, really, because they fight in such a different manner to pretty much the rest of the weight divisions. They're a lot slower in many cases. There's, you know, it's just a different type of boxing, really, in my eyes. And in a pound for pound terms, how would they do against a fighter who had better movement? You know, where do you put them? But the Klitschko's definitely have got to be up there. I haven't got them there in my top pound for pound 5, but, you know, they definitely have to be in the 10. I could have probably put one or two, maybe one of the brothers, or possibly both in the top 5. I haven't chosen to because I'm not really a big fan of the heavyweight division. But you know, I got to give them a mention here. The Klitschko brothers have been so dominant in the heavyweight division for so long, and they have to be respected and appreciated for what they've done. Also, the likes of, you know, Chad Dawson in light heavyweight. I think he's the best light heavyweight right now. That's my opinion. Robert Guerrero beat Selçuk Aydin on the weekend. He's another quality fighter. Anselmo Moreno, who is down there at bantamweight, Panamanian. He's absolute class act. Again, one of my favourite fighters. He's really good. You've got the likes of Gamboa, who he's been out of the ring for a while now, and he needs to come back and prove something in my eyes, although he is rated by a lot of people. Then you've got Nonito Donaire and Guillermo Rigondeaux in the lower weights again. Donaire is absolutely, you know, he's a quality boxer who I do rate, but again, I do feel that he doesn't fight often enough, and he needs to fight top quality opposition more often. And Rigondeaux, he's not proven yet, as far as I'm concerned. I think he's a really good boxer, but it's very difficult to tell with these guys coming up. So, you know, just giving these guys a mention. You've got Adrian Broner as well, who I think is real talent. You've got a lot of guys up and down the divisions. But my top 5, Mayweather, Ward, Marquez, Martinez and Pacquiao. So, moving on to the third question, Siderath00, that's CIDER ATH00, always a top commenter on my videos, has been for a while. Whenever I see a comment from Siderath, I know it's going to be you know, a good contribution to the video. And he asks, simple question, how old are you and where are you from? And also, what do you think of Julio Cesar Chavez Sr.? Well, I'm 26, I'm from Cardiff in Wales, here in the UK. And regarding Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., he's obviously a legendary fighter, an all-time great boxer. He's going to be on all-time pound-for-pound lists for many people. Probably the best Mexican fighter ever. Just a real warrior in the ring, typified Mexican fighting and boxing. Such a you know, long career, established. Nothing but respect for him, obviously. One thing I will say, I don't like him getting too involved really in his son's career now. You know, giving a bit of trash talk to Sergio Martinez. He's obviously going to talk his son up, but I don't see the need. I really think you know, he's had his time. I'd like to see him take a bit of a step back. Obviously take an interest in his son's career, but don't get too involved. Don't be up at every press conference giving it a big one. You know, you've done what you've done in the ring. Everyone, you know, considers you an all-time great and respects you for what you've done. Don't, you know, let your son talk for himself. It really is the message I would have for him. But you know, I don't really like how he's agree with the way Chavez Jr.'s career has been handled outside the ring to date. It's been handled very well in terms of, you know, building him up, but in terms of the weight issues and the drugs issues, you know, all the controversy surrounding that whole issue, I really you know, lose a bit of respect for him and his team really, for the way they conduct themselves in that unprofessional manner outside the ring. But overall, as a boxer, what can you say? You know, we had some legendary fights, Meldrick Taylor fights, and you know that's what's to be said about him. So I hope that addresses your question. As far as right now, I'd like to see him take a little step back with regards to his son. I really would. Next question, it comes from TVDX Rules. That's TVDX ROOLS. TVDX Rules. He asks, what's your opinion on the bare knuckle boxers, not the cage rubbish, but the likes of McLean and Shaw, etc. And I really did like this question. It's a really good question because I've read various books, particularly the two guys he mentions, Lenny McLean and Roy Shaw, who are notorious, you know, street fighters really, from here in the UK, in the latter half of the last century. And what I would say about those guys is, with regards in relation to boxing, I know Roy Shaw had a pretty good, promising boxing career early on, and he was a better boxer probably between him and McLean in my eyes, in terms of following the rules of the boxing ring and being effective there. But you know, none of them were ever going to really be amazing boxers. But in terms of street fighting, and where pretty much are the rules, these were fearsome guys. You know, these were real hard men, and I think just really interesting people, interesting characters, leading interesting lives, and it really shows a good gives a view from an outsider of what life was like, you know, particularly around London and in Britain in general, in the underground fighting scene, unlicensed boxing, and you know, if you're not from the UK, if you are from the UK, but if you're not from the UK in particular, look for books. The Governor, which is Lenny McLean's book, and Roy Pretty Boy Shaw, his book. And they're the main two. I know there are others, but they're probably the two most famous guys we have here in the UK regarding you know, hard men books, and really will give you a really interesting, great insight into the lives these guys led. Fascinating stuff, and really, you know, you wouldn't want to meet those guys down a brightly lit alley, let alone a dark one. And these guys were, you know, earning a living, fighting in the traveller. There's a traveller community here in the UK, which is notorious for you know, fighting and boxing matches, bare knuckle fighting, and guys like Lenny McLean and Roy Shaw would earn money and make a living off unlicensed bare knuckle boxing matches, and you know, it's just something that interests me, something I have read, you know, a few books on, and it was really good books, so I really would recommend them to you. And yeah, regarding McLean and Shaw, there's always arguments going on as to who was tougher, and everyone has different opinions, and you know, who am I to say who would be tougher? Both guys are, you know, hard as nails, and you know, I focus more on the interesting life they had and the insight into different, you know, their character and the way they lived, and things they were involved in, the adventures they had. I really would recommend it. You know, can't agree with all the stuff they did. You know, a lot of it was, you know, criminal activity and bad stuff, but we're all born into different circumstances. We all get mixed in with different circumstances. We live at different times, different economic climates, different, you know, political regimes. You know, I'm not here to judge anyone. I just find it, you know, interesting books about interesting people. But these are the books I'm on about. We've got Roy Shaw, Pretty Boy. This is one of the guys, you know, was mentioned by TVDX Rules. Really good book. Then you've got Lenny McLean, The Governor, real famous book in terms of hard men type books. I'd say this is my favourite of the two, a bit of a better read in my opinion. That's just opinion. And the other book that I wanted to bring to your attention is Jeff Thompson, Watch My Back. I actually found this a really good read. It's quite a thick book, but this was a little different in that it's not, to me, it wasn't your typical hard man book, because this guy was working on the doors, you know, as a bouncer in Coventry, and he was involved in martial arts. I forget what discipline, but he sort of trained for the first punch. He had the theory that in a fight, you know, if you get into a brawl and you scrap it and you know get taken to the ground and you know you end up fighting with some guys, then you're going to inevitably lose come what may. There's going to always be a guy who can beat you. But he always found that he trained for the first punch, the knockout punch, and he had to make a mental decision. If things were going to get out of hand, he had to make that split decision on fight. He talks a lot about fight or flight, and the mental side of things and techniques. You know, to hold people. He had something called the fence, where he'd sort of like use his hands and you know the whole use of body language. But if he felt he had to make a move, he would strike, and he it claims that he never lost a fight. I can just go by what the book says and what he says, and he used to just go for that first punch. He felt if you were the first one there, and you practiced to land a clean punch and basically knock your guy out, and or hurt the guy so he wasn't even able to fight you in the first place, then you'd win the fight. And I have to say, it's an absolutely fascinating book. And you know, it's just a bit different. He said, you know, he was just bullied in school and stuff, and he wasn't claiming to be some sort of amazingly hard fighter, hard guy. But it was more of a mental attitude, you know, being able to end the fight before it begun, really, in essence. And I think really would recommend that book to you, because it's a really different type of book, and it gives you a lot more insight into a different type of theory and a mental attitude towards, you know, street fighting or controlling, you know, violence, if you ever approach violence. You know, just a really good book. So I hope that answers that question. I've gone on a bit on that question, but like I said, it's quite a good question that I wanted to answer thoroughly. Moving on. Question 5 from Mikto. Miktoh, another great commenter. Always leaves, you know, never talks smack. Always leaves really good comments for me. Always contributes to my videos very well. So thanks, bud. And he says, David Tua versus Mike Tyson at both their prime. What is your take? Got the privileges to watch all of their fights in the 80s. I think he means the 90s for David Tua, because he didn't have his first fight till 92, I think. And Tyson was probably, you know, late 80s and through the 90s. Both of them great KO artists, real beasts of the ring, in the ring in heavyweight division. Damn, I would have loved this one. You and me both, mate. I really would have enjoyed that fight had it ever materialised. And really difficult call, you know. Mike Tyson and David Tua are both very similar in style. Both, you know, that type of Joe Frazier, that type of come forward inside. Both quite short guys for the heavyweight division. And you know, I kind of think either Tyson would stop Tua early on, maybe the first half of the fight, or the longer it goes on, I think it actually favours David Tua. I think Tua would probably get late stoppage or decision. You know, I just think the stamina may get to Tyson. Maybe Tua would get him late on, but probably pick. I know the thing is, David Tua was never stopped either. You know, all these losses came by decision, so it's quite difficult if anyone would be able to stop him. But I guess Mike Tyson was, you know, a KO artist really in his prime, at his peak. So yeah, actually, I'd probably pick David Tua late on. You know, maybe, you know, late stoppage or decision. I have to say, because Tua is you know, not to be underrated, not to be underestimated in that fight. And I think what a tear up that would be, though. You know, what a real tear up. But anyway, probably Tyson early or Tua late. But I'd probably favour the fight to probably go on later, and Tua perhaps to take it. So, question 6 from Future Jab. That's Future Jab, Futurejab. Future Jab's a good friend of mine, and many channels on YouTube. Always been from day one a really good contributor to my channel, done nothing but support me, and he's on Twitter as well at FutureJab. And you know, just a guy you can talk boxing with, straight boxing, and he knows his stuff, and he's just a really good contributor to the YouTube boxing community and the community on Twitter as well. So big up to FutureJab. And he says, great channel mate, been a supporter for a long time as you know, always look out for your new uploads, keep it going, always good stuff. Can I ask you the same as I've asked Wingy and Dwyer way back? Basically he's asking me who are your favourite boxers, and the boxers you admire, the boxers you can watch again and again. And for this question I'd have to answer with pretty much my top 5 pound for pound. You know, Mayweather I like watching in terms of his skill. He's a good defensive boxer to watch. Andre Ward because of his skill. I've always favoured skillful fighters, watching technical fighters. They don't have to be particularly exciting in terms of action. I like to watch guys who are in there doing this, you know, the sweet science, showing it at its best. It's something I've just always really kind of liked. I've actually always favoured those type of fighters over brawlers, you know, more exciting fighters who maybe put a bit more on the line. But it's just my opinion, the way I am, the way I like to watch boxing. You've got Marquez. I like watching Manuel Marquez. I think he's brilliant at what he does. Watching his counter punching is just sublime. Sergio Martinez is a slick fighter. I always enjoy watching him. And then Manny Pacquiao, because he's an exciting fighter to watch. That's why he's so famous and why he's got the reputation he has. I also really like watching Bernard Hopkins. I've always admired his work, his abilities. Even as he's getting older, I enjoy watching his technique and the way he can break a younger fighter down, a more athletic guy down, the way he can just use boxing, pure boxing and boxing tactics and technique to he just basically outboxes guys you wouldn't think he'd be able to, you know, and that's boxing in its purest form for me. I love watching Carl Froch. He makes me proud coming from the UK because he's a winner. I think in the UK we support too many losers. You know, we're like in the Olympics now. You know, we're bigging up people for getting bronze medals. You know, fair play. These guys have got to the Olympics in the first place, and it's a big achievement. And the bronze medal is really great. But you know, we perhaps don't put enough emphasis on winners and people who are actually winning gold. And I really admire Froch for being one of the top in his division and fighting the best, and often coming out on top. And one guy I really admire in boxing, who probably have most admiration for, is Orlando Salido, because you know the guy is a world champion, and he's got like 11 losses on his record. And if you really want to know what boxing is about, you take a guy like Orlando Salido with his determination. You know, to have 11 losses on your record and still be at the top of the division. And what is he, super featherweight or featherweight? I can't off the top of my head, I'm not sure. But he's, you know, he's still a problem for like any fighter that goes against him. You know, his determination, his, you know, the epitome of a Mexican boxer, a real warrior in the ring, a real fighter, has never let anything, you know, put him down, whatever he's been through in his career, and he's still at the top of his game, you know, like absolutely class act, quality. And you know, I like watching him as well. He's always in a good tear up. He can just, you know, fight with the best of them, and I've got great admiration for him in what he's been able to achieve. So thanks for FutureJab for that question. I've got a question here from OwenGG17. That's OWENGG17. He says, really well thought out predictions. Always like your vids, dude. Cheers, mate. I've got a pretty simple question. Who's your favourite currently active lower weight fighter, and who's your favourite currently active higher weight fighter? Well, simple answer. In the lower weights, I'm, you know, just thinking of like lightweight and below, I guess. I'd have to go for Manuel Marquez. I know he's like welterweight now, I think, but I think he's best at lightweight. And like I've already mentioned, why I like Marquez, and also Anselmo Moreno, who's bantamweight. I think he's class. He's not. A lot of people think he's not the best to watch because he doesn't have a particularly powerful punch, but he can just undress a guy, you know, completely outskill a guy in the ring. I really like watching him. And in the higher weights, I'm looking at probably Bernard Hopkins at light heavyweight. My favourite boxer at the moment, my favourite fighter. I know he lost to Chad Dawson, but at his age to be doing what he's been doing, you know, the 2 fights he had against Pascal, I thoroughly enjoyed them. I don't know where he's going to go from here, if he's going to fight on or what, but I think he can still beat pretty much every other guy in the light heavyweight division on his night, so I hope he carries on. Like I said, I'm not a massive fan of the heavyweight division, but if I'm going to go for, you know, the top weight, at heavyweight, one of my favourite fighters right now is David Price. I know he's unproven really, and he's still upcoming British heavyweight, but I think he's definitely one to watch for the future, and I really like that guy. I think he's a really good boxer. I think he's definitely one to watch out for, and he's one of my favourite fighters at a higher weight right now. So that's David Price. Question 8. I know this video is getting really long now. I might actually have to stop, guys, and go for the second video, you know, once this gets around the 30-minute mark. But I'll probably answer one more question, and then I'll make another video. So this question's from Tenpin, Tenpin. It says, "Hi mate, a couple of questions all relating to the same thing. In your opinion, who was the best British fighter of all time? How high do you rate Benny Lynch in best of British, given his young retirement age and alcoholism? And how do you view Joe Calzaghe's legacy now he's retired? Does the fact he was unbeaten mean a lot when you look at all the people he didn't fight in the late 90s, early 2000s? Looking forward to seeing your response for it, fella." Thanks for the question, mate. Appreciate it. Tenpin's always been a good commenter on my videos as well. First question, best British fighter of all time. Maybe I'm a little biased here, but I'd probably have to go for Jimmy Wilde, the Welshman. He's from my neck of the woods and pretty much regarded as the best flyweight of all time. It makes, you know, you can be extremely proud of thinking of a guy like that. I know it was, you know, way back. We're talking back in time, but he really was a class act, considering for his size and the things he went through. You know, the way he came up in boxing, and he was truly the best flyweight in the world at his time. I know Pancho Villa took on the mantle, but you know, Jimmy Wilde really was a legend. I've got a video up on him if you search through my videos, my video history. I posted a tribute video to Jimmy Wilde. You know, really great fighter, and I would say he edges it for me as the greatest British fighter of all time. There are many, but I'm going to have to go for him. Benny Lynch, in many ways really similar to Jimmy Wilde, you know, because he was also a flyweight and came a bit later, and he also pretty much started his career in carnival booths, and Jimmy Wilde was in the boxing booths with the Welsh Mines. And you know, Benny Lynch, in many ways the Scottish Jimmy Wilde, another guy we can be extremely proud of, extremely tough fighter, extremely accomplished fighter. Like you said, he had a short career. He had difficulty with alcoholism. Unfortunately, tragically died at a young age. Was he like 33, I think? But he was a world champion. He only lost his title because he was overweight. And considering he had such a short career, to have that many fights, you know, 80 odd victories, I believe it was, 81 victories, you know, absolute quality fighter. Definitely got to be up there when you're looking at the best of the British fighters. He's definitely got to be considered. And yeah, you know, nothing but respect for what the guy achieved and how good he was. You know, it just followed on. You know, it's good that we followed on such good flyweights coming from the UK, and he kind of, you know, carried on that tradition. He had to prove, like Jimmy Wilde did, he had to prove to the other side of the Atlantic, to America, that he was the best flyweight in the world, and he did that. I can't remember the name of the guy he defeated, but he beat him over here in London, I believe, and you know, proved that he was the best in the world. So many, you know, crossover similarities. I know Jimmy Wilde lived till he was much older, but in terms of their early career and stuff, I'd say quite similar. So that, you know, I would rate him quite highly, in fact, Benny Lynch, in answer to your question. And how do you view Joe Calzaghe's legacy now he's retired? You know, I was a fan of Calzaghe. I can't, you know, go in too hard on the guy. He's a fellow Welshman, and I think, you know, obviously unbeaten. I think he was a very, very good boxer, probably better than a lot of people give him credit for. But that's really, I don't know whether you can blame it on him or his team or what, but circumstance, however it panned out, doesn't favour his legacy really. The last few fights he had, Jeff Lacey, and in particular the Mikhail Kessler fight, really showed how good he actually was. I don't think he would have beaten Roy Jones Jr. in their primes. I think Jones Jr. is probably the best fighter of his generation. I know there's you know, an argument over the weight issue there, with the difference in weights, like super middleweight and light heavyweight, being that they did fight at different weights for a long period. I think it's a real shame, in fact, that we didn't really get to see Kawasaki fight more guys from particularly from the US in their prime. We really would have been able to have a more balanced view of him and, you know, his ability. Unfortunately, it doesn't really bode well for him, because there's always a what if, you know. And I've read Calzaghe's biography, and, you know, No Ordinary Joe it's called. I recommend it. It's quite a good read. It just seems like there's a lot of excuses in it as to why he didn't have that outstanding fight. He was always chasing that one defining fight throughout his career, and it didn't come until he fought Lacey and Kessler, and then further on Hopkins and Jones. And for me, it's a bit of a shame, really. And he has to be rated as one of the best British boxers of all time, I feel. I think he had a really great ability. He was a really good boxer and had terrific stamina. But again, it's never going to be on his side. There's always going to be detractors. He's never really going to get the appreciation he maybe deserves for his ability, because he didn't fight perhaps the you know, he doesn't have perhaps enough names on his record. And you know, Joe Calzaghe is a difficult one. You know, I was a fan of his. I still think he was one of the best British fighters, and I think he would have beaten a lot of these guys. You know, we say we wish he'd fought. I think he would have had a good chance of beating a lot of them and really, you know, cementing maybe a better legacy. But I think we have to maybe judge him on, like you say, the Kessler fight. Even, you know, the Bernard Hopkins fight, I know it was a very close fight, but to even be that close with a tactician like Bernard Hopkins shows how good Calzaghe really was. He really was a very good fighter. But like I said, his legacy does leave something to be desired. There's always going to be question marks, basically, for me and for many other people, unfortunately. But yeah, a really, really good fighter. But unfortunately, there's always going to be question marks. I read his biography. There's some good insights. It may, you know, give you some, you know, some better views on him and his career. And have I covered the whole question? Yeah, I think I've covered that question. So I'm going to leave it there, guys, because this is running on to 35 minutes now. So I'm going to now make another video, and I'll be uploading both of these videos for you guys. I know it's been really long, but I'm trying to give each guy their time. Each person asking a question, I'm trying to give you time and really answer the question thoroughly. Because there's no point you ask me a question and I just breeze past it. There's no point. I'm going to try and answer each question thoroughly. So thanks for watching. I'll be uploading the second video shortly after this one. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video.